Hello and welcome to a continuation, really, of what we've been doing on a daily basis. This is our new weekly show. Not much has changed. It's basically me, and more importantly, it's the author of 99%, Mark Thomas. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Peter. How are you?
Good. Well, I'm still here, and I think that's the most. I think that's an achievement in itself these days. We were talking about some interesting stuff yesterday. Let's just have a look at some of these headlines. These are all from the Daily Mail. It's not exactly known for being an iniquitous den of left-wing communist ideology, but here we are. He's using these emotive words about a certain group of people: greed. Vultures, bleakest day in the UK for the high street. This character called Philip Green, Sir Philip Green. The word greed has been used a lot about him and his wife. Private equity fat cats. Here we've got a most extraordinary picture of a man called Crispin, who apparently is a buccaneer. He's just raked in £220 million, looking very happy about it. And more extraordinary words, really. Vampire private equity firms. I want to ask you, Mark, who are these people and why are they behaving like this?
Well, very good question. Not all private equity firms behave like that, and not all hedge funds behave like that. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of people who, well, not a lot, I suppose it's a small number, but they're enormously influential, who do consistently behave like this. We talked yesterday about how there's a kind of pattern of behavior. Yeah. And I think they do it because they have a completely different way of looking at the world from most people. And in that way of looking at the world, what they're doing is not only excusable, but it's actually the right thing to do. And in fact, it is the moral thing to do, to behave like that.
The moral thing to do. Okay, so
the moral thing to do.
Let's just refresh our memory. So yesterday we were looking at the demise of a great brand of the British high street, Debenhams. Effectively, what the newspaper seemed to be saying, caused by the extraction of enormous amounts of value from Debenhams into the hands of a very, very small number of people, leaving the company completely unable to deal with a very challenging situation that all retailers now face. So some people have become inordinately wealthy. There's a big employer there, 13,000 people, to say nothing of associated suppliers. Can you try to explain how this is in any way, shape or form a moral thing to do?
Well, it's not moral in the sense that you or I, or indeed the dictionaries, would understand the word moral. If you look up morality in the dictionary, then you find that it's to do with value judgments and deciding between right and wrong. And that is what morality means to most people. But if you're a market fundamentalist, actually you have a different morality. You have a different mentality as well, which is that you have sort of mentally outsourced your sense of morality to the market. So you simply believe that the magic of markets works so well that if somebody gets well rewarded, that means they've created a lot of value for society as a whole. So if they have become a billionaire, there's absolutely nothing to apologize for. In fact, they should be celebrated because the fact that they themselves are a billionaire means they must have created trillions of value for the rest of society. So they should actually be treated like saints, rather than like vampires and greedy people and vultures and whatever these other words were that we were just looking at in the headlines.
Yeah. Okay. So they've actually, what they've done in their heads is they've associated the amount of money in their bank account with the sort of person they are, and the bigger the numbers there, the better person they are on a weird sort of moral scale. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think their sense of identity becomes tied up with how much money they have. So if I think the typical household wealth in the UK is about £300,000. You never meet anyone who says, "Well, I'm a £300,000
No. No, you mean that would include the cost? I mean, whatever people have assets they've got on their homes and so on. Because most people have not got £300,000 in their bank.
No, absolutely. That would be almost entirely the value of their house for people who are lucky enough to have bought a house long ago that they own most of it. So the equity in the house belongs to them. And it's significant. And as I say, on average, it's about £300,000. But the point is, nobody identifies themselves that way. No, if you were to take somebody of that average wealth and ask them, what are you? They'd say, well, I'm a doctor or I'm a teacher. They wouldn't say I'm a 300,000er. That's not.
I might start there, actually.
That's not their sense of identity. But if you were a billionaire, then it's very likely, actually, that is how you identify yourself. That's how the world identifies. Yeah. That's who you are. Yeah. So you're a billionaire, and obviously you're only a billionaire if you have a net worth of $1 billion. So if something happened that reduced your net worth from, let's say...
Oh, no.
Exactly. If something reduced your net worth from, let's say, 1.1 billion to 0.9 billion, you would still have a net worth of 900 million pounds, which is, of course, vastly more than anybody could conceivably need for themselves, for their families, for their grandchildren. It's just a colossal amount of money. So you would think, if you're a normal person, you would think, well, why would they be so upset? They won't even really notice the difference. But actually, I don't think that's true for them, because I think their sense of identity would be demolished. They would have dropped out of that exclusive club of being a billionaire, and they would simply be a multi-millionaire. So when people talk about wealth taxes, it sounds like nothing to say, well, why don't we tax them a percent or two of their wealth? Because the truth is
they're not going to miss it. They won't miss it, and we need it.
Exactly. The rest of society really needs it. They really don't need it. It seems very simple and logical that we would do a wealth tax. And you think, well, why is there so much resistance to a wealth tax? But if you imagine, if it's part of your identity, let's suppose, how tall are you, Peter?
I think I've shrunk, actually.
No, just tell me how at your peak.
Let's say 5'10". Let's say 5'10".
5'10". So you are, in fact, a little bit over the average. So you're
unnecessary.
So you are unnecessarily tall. You see, you could perfectly well do with being 5'8", which makes you average. So if we were to say, well, why don't we just lop a couple of inches off you, and you'll still have perfectly adequate height. That I think is the way they feel about the idea of somebody taking a couple of percent off in a wealth tax. They don't see it as being. In fact, the way that a normal person would think, well, I don't want to lose 1% of my wealth, but it's only 1%. It probably won't make that much difference. For them, it's like somebody saying, well, we'll take 1% of your height off, so we're going to scalp you.
Wow.
I think that's how they perceive it. So that's why you get this kind of really desperate behavior, and anything that stands in the way of this preservation of the self, and indeed aggrandizement of the self, is a huge threat. It's not just a small financial issue for them, which logically you would think it would be. I think it's much deeper. Not for everybody, and you obviously see some very notable counter examples, but it's, I think, not uncommon for people to get caught into this identity issue.
It's always been like that. Has it always been that way, or is this sort of a sort of an artifact really of the greed is good 1980s, no such thing as society?
Well, I think it has strengthened. I can remember when I first went into business, it was very, very common to hear somebody who had done extremely well in business getting towards the end of their career and saying things like, well, I've done really well, society's been good to me, and I feel now it's time for me to give something back. So this idea of giving something back was very current amongst the very wealthy. But I think this market fundamentalism has been inculcated very deliberately over the last 40 years or so. And part of that is that you absolutely should not be talking about giving things back. You've been giving all your life by becoming a billionaire. As I started out by saying, the very fact that you've accumulated all this wealth demonstrates how much you've been giving. So you've got absolutely nothing to apologize for, absolutely nothing to talk about giving back for. If you want to be a philanthropist, well, of course, you're free to do what you like, but you absolutely shouldn't be feeling any sense of moral obligation to do it. And I think that's been a real change. I don't know the last time I heard somebody say, I've done really well and now it's time to give back.
I agree. I was just thinking, I don't know. Occasionally you see people like, I don't know, Bill Gates perhaps, who's mad on vaccination. He's sort of giving back a bit. But maybe it'd be nice to feel that Bill is paying his fair share in taxes all the way along the road to billionaire status, which I don't know. I mean, internet companies tend not to do that these days. No,
indeed.
So we always like to be a little bit positive here, if we can be, even though we are talking about some fairly grim things, really. So there's been a change in society where people can start to feel like that. And how can we reverse that, do you think? What are the first steps that we can all take to start the healing process?
Well, I think the first thing, which is a very personal thing, is to make sure that we ourselves understand what's actually happening, and that we don't fall victim to the rhetoric. So there is a lot of rhetoric associated with this. For example, the government has just said that they're going to have special rules on international travel for high-value people.
I read about that. What's going on there?
Well, because if you're a market fundamentalist, somebody who's very wealthy is high value. They are adding high value to society, and therefore they shouldn't be bound by the same sets of rules and regulations as low value people. Right. And the more you look, the more you see that there's this kind of rhetoric all over the place, which actually makes us complicit, because we think, well, I suppose fair enough, they are high value people. When businesses collapse, they talk about creative destruction, and they say, yes, it's sad that the business collapses, but this frees up people and property and other resources that can be used to build new, more successful businesses. So actually, it looks like destruction, but in reality, it's kind of latent creation. And there are all these phrases which we've heard so many times that we don't really question them, and that one of the big mysteries is why we've allowed this drift away from what's good for the 99% and towards what's good for actually not even the 1%, but the 0.01%. Why we've allowed that drift to go on so long without taking action. And one of the big reasons we haven't taken action is because we believe there's no action to be taken. So the first thing is we need to educate ourselves, which is not that easy, actually, because we're continually being misinformed. We talked the other day about how the BBC used this analogy of the government being like a household, which, again, we've heard it so many times that it sounds plausible. We analysed it a few days ago, and we showed that it's actually there's no substance to it at all. It's just not a good analogy. It's not a nice, simple, friendly way of explaining it that will help people. It's a way of misleading people. So that is a big part of what needs to happen. That's the personal side of it. But once we realize it, then there are more than 99 of us for every one of them. And so once we realize it, then actually we do have plenty of power.
Storm the Bastille. Oh, no, this is non-violent, isn't it?
This is non-violent. This is non-violent. I don't think violence is necessary. If we have a significant proportion of the 99% understanding what the name of the game really is, I think things can change actually very quickly and very easily. The problem is we are virtually all of us, and I include myself in that, either are or at least have been complicit in our own indoctrination. It was really only a few years ago when I started doing all this research that I realized how many things that I believed that were simply not true, and I had just not had time to check them out. But the truth is, I was believing many of these things myself that I've highlighted in the book, and then all I had to do was, visit the Bank of England website or the Office for National Statistics, and suddenly I thought, well, the numbers are not telling me this. What's going on? But you either need to have time to do that research yourself, or you need to read a book like 99% that sets it out clearly for you.
Yeah, excellent, good. Well, that's very positive, and I think you're doing something that not just me, but a lot of people believe in, which is grassroots change. It's change, it may take longer like that, but it's not top down. It's not top down, and it means that whatever change is achieved is going to last. We could go on longer, but you are a busy guy. You've got meetings to go to. Interesting one in Hereford coming up.
Yes, very interesting. So we talked the other day about the Herefordshire 2030 project, which is very much what you were just saying, bottom up. So we're looking at what could Herefordshire as a county, so that's not just the business community, but the council and the educational community and the third sector, anybody else who is interested, working together, what could they do bottom up, even without waiting for changes in government policy? And we don't know all the answers yet, but what we have done, we've had a team of volunteers working for 2 or 3 months now. They've produced a really excellent interim report, which we've just circulated. We had last week a very good discussion talking about innovative finance. We had actually probably the UK's 2 leading experts on community banking as the presenters, and we had a good proportion of the cabinet from the council and the educational community, etc., gathered there to hear about these opportunities. Next week, we've got a meeting which is more of a working meeting where, again, those same communities are invited, and we'll be discussing some of the hypotheses that are in that interim report and saying, well, we obviously can't fix it, all the issues we've found, but if we could find 5 or 6 issues which as a county we want to tackle, then we'll spend the next few months developing the solutions, and then from next year onwards we can start to actually implement those solutions.
Very good.
And they won't be quick wins, but they might give us a nice medium-term solution to the problems that we face. So that's very exciting.
Very good. Solid progress. Radical.
Yes, absolutely.
Just tell us, Mark. I mean, this forthcoming meeting, that's not a public one, is it? It's really for Herefordians for obvious reasons, that we want people with a stake in the county. So if you're not Herefordian but you're interested, we will absolutely tell you about it, but probably not for that working meeting. If you are Herefordian and you're interested, then all the details are on the website. Just send us a message somehow, which you can easily do via the website, and or you'll see some details about the project itself. Brilliant. And you'll be welcome to come along. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mark. Always good talking to Mark. And we've converted from a daily series now into a weekly series, and I hope you'll be with us every Saturday morning. That's when we're going out. And in the meantime, if you haven't actually read Mark's book, 99%, on Kindle now, and paperback too, you can get it at this buy link, 99.reddiamond.tv. It'll take you straight through. One click and it's on your Kindle. Please do. It's life-changing. Questions to Mark, leave them in the comments section underneath. And we'll see you next Saturday.